Will there be train service from Springfield to Boston? Tim Brennan, the executive director of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, spoke with me about the recently released draft rail plan. He started by clearing up a common misconception about the concept.
What's not generally understood is that there's two projects here. There's a project that was actually, the study was completed in June of 2016, which is talking about a conventional rail connection that would go Boston, Worcester, Palmer, Springfield, Hartford, New Haven, at speeds comparable to automobiles. That project is put into a box of needs further study. Then we have the initiative, which is Senator Lesser's, that he's been chasing for a long, long time and has been blocked several times. That's a much more bold, ambitious project to do high-speed rail. Think bullet trains, as we've seen in Europe and Asia. And what he's asking for, and I think it's a very responsible ask, is a feasibility study. You start with a feasibility study. So basically what the state has done is taken them both, put them together, and said we're going to further study both of these initiatives.
So does that mean neither will get done? Does that mean they both get slowed down?
Well, to be honest, it's going to slow down because what we were hopeful with the conventional connection is we'd be talking about moving it into implementation in 10 years. The high speed is a much more bold, ambitious. You'd have to be on a separate right-of-way. So think of all the implications of that, environmental studies, taking land, et cetera, et cetera.
As opposed to brokering some sort of deal with existing rail partners and making that happen.
Yes, and what we were thinking, these are actually not in competition, they're complementary. One is doable within 10 years or less, the other would take 10 years or more, but having a high-speed rail track is a game changer, absolutely.
There's been some opposition to, at some points along the way, especially from Peter Piccinelli, who's the head of Peter Pan Bus Line, saying that when we only look at rail, it's too narrow. Where does the Planning Commission stand on that stance?
We look for the more modes, the merrier. Giving people option, choice, by other than being behind their own private automobile. There's something called a Downeaster service that connects Maine with Boston. And actually, they've taken the train and the bus schedule, merged them. So if you miss the 6:30 bus, you get on the 6:45 train. Same ticket, same fare, and both modes have made out wonderfully. So that's something we would be keen to pursue.
Let's talk about bus service. The Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, I've been hearing from a lot of people who are concerned given that there's a proposal to increase the rates and then also change the bus schedule, so you might be paying more for less service. Where do you think that stands?
That's a serious problem for the region. We know it's going to translate into economic and human harm. Single moms that can't get to a job, kids that can't get to Holyoke Community College or can't get home from it, work sites where we're training workers to connect with actual employment. This time it's a combination of cuts to service and a fare increase, which for transit folks like myself, that's a toxic combination. But it will not help the region at all. So we're cautiously optimistic that when this story is told, then the ramifications of it are well known, that the legislature will take a harder look at this as they have in the past and maybe have a reversal of the budget.
Transportation needs, we're talking a lot about how we use rail, how we use the streets to get these buses along. Infrastructure, meaning how the status of those roads and bridges that we're traveling each and every day, seems to be also challenged right now. When the president came out in his State of the Union, he really championed that he would be supporting these infrastructure needs, but now we've been hearing that the onus is really going to be at the state level in terms of funding those, and then the federal government will kind of come in and bridge that gap, if you'll pardon the pun. What do you think that is going to mean for any chance that we'll see improvements to especially bridges?
The formula for transportation, particularly investments, was always 80% federal, 20%. Now it flips that. And on top of that, in this particular proposal, states and localities would have to come up with the 80%, and then the federal government would make the project decisions, which seems a little bit bizarre. But this is just a beginning salvo. The good news is that there's finally some real talk about infrastructure, and now it's really up to Congress, and that there could be a wholesale rewrite. This is a very complicated issue. I guess I'm happy to see it on the table for the first time, but I'd surely like to get an opportunity to reshape it.